Next, I would like to introduce to you Marilyn Smith from Chapter IY in Lincoln, who is now the chair of the PEO Scholar Awards. And special kudos to her for stepping in when she was asked, kind of on a spur of the moment, to take over the chairmanship toward the just a few months before this convention. She's done a magnificent job already. Thank you. Marilyn.
Thank you. 24 hours ago, I found out that I was going to be introducing the Scholar Award. And so I took a deep breath and I thought, well, maybe I will imagine this as a large class of 7th graders. So if any of you are inclined to poke your neighbor or make a face at someone across the table, go right ahead. When the International Convention was held in Omaha in 1991, they established the Scholar Award. It provides educational awards of $15,000 for women who are pursuing a doctoral level degree. It is a highly competitive award with 85 women selected out of 630 nominated. Nebraska chapters donated over $25,000 to PSA last year. 3 chapters are being recognized for becoming PSA laureate chapters by donating $500. They are FN of Kearney, DL of Lincoln, and AP of St. Paul. Chapter AK of North Platte is a Scholar Award chapter for nominating Suzanne Jane Higgins. Delegates of these chapters, would you please stop by the Scholar Display booth and pick up your certificates after the event this evening. This evening, we are honored to have Jennifer Invarsu of H.L. Blair. She is a recent graduate with a MD degree at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. Jennifer helped to successfully author a grant to fund a psychiatric consultation night at the free clinic, which was run by medical students. I present to you one of PEO's jewels, Jennifer Invarsu.
Good evening, and thank you all for inviting me here to speak tonight. I'd like to say thank you so much for all of your contributions that made this possible. My story begins as a young 18-year-old about to graduate from high school. At that time, I was trying to figure out what to do with my life, and I thought, what do I really like? I always found people fascinating, and I like to think about why they did the things that they did and what made them make certain choices. And lucky for me, I discovered that that was already a field of study, and that was psychology. So when I started college, it was natural for me to major in psychology. But the difficult decision came when I had to decide what a career in psychology would look like for me. There are 2 main paths that I could take. One was clinical psychology, which required a PhD and focused on doing therapy with patients and research on psychological disorders. And the second was psychiatry, which required a medical degree, followed by a 4-year residency in psychiatry, and focused on learning the medical causes of psychiatric illnesses and medications and therapies used to treat those illnesses. So it was a tough decision, but naturally I chose the longer path, and that led me to medicine to pursue psychiatry. There were many factors involved in this decision, but an important one was the experience I had working as a psych tech as an undergrad. I worked closely with psychiatric patients and was able to see how important having a foundation in medicine was to the care and treatment of these individuals. I would need a solid understanding of human anatomy and physiology in order to provide the very best care that I could. So, off to medical school I went. As soon as I started school, I found ways to get involved in psychiatry. I helped line up speakers for educational sessions and worked with fellow students to set up the Medical Student Mental Health Week in order to raise awareness about depression and suicide among medical students. Soon, the Behavioral Health Education Center of Nebraska, or Beacon, became a big part of the interest group. I worked with Beacon to help recruit undergraduate students into the mental health field by speaking with the psychology majors at the University of Nebraska, Omaha. I was very fortunate to have so many wonderful opportunities to get involved in a field that I truly loved. Another of these opportunities came during my very first year of school, and I didn't know it at the time, but it would become my biggest project and one that I was incredibly honored to be a part of. During my time as a psych tech, I had become very passionate about finding a way to provide better psychiatric care to those underserved patients in need. I would see patients in the hospital who needed an outpatient psychiatrist or therapist but couldn't afford to go because they didn't have insurance, couldn't afford the copay, or couldn't even afford the gas to get to the appointment. They struggled to keep themselves out of the hospital because they just didn't have the support once they left. During medical school, I began to volunteer at our medical student-run clinic, Sharing. Here, I was part of providing free general medical care to the underserved population in Omaha with the help of volunteer faculty. While working at the clinic, I noticed that there was a clear need for further psychiatric care for these patients. At the time, the patients had been referred to outside clinics to follow up with therapists or psychiatrists, but only a few made it to these appointments, and most couldn't pay. I began working closely with the faculty and other students to incorporate psychiatric services into the student-run clinic that we already had. And after the clinic was open, I became the director of the psychiatry services. At the clinic, students were able to spend time with volunteer psychiatrists, learning to address mental health issues, and providing quality psychiatric care to those patients in need. After a year, I was able to survey the students who had worked with the psychiatry team to learn about the comfort that they had in addressing mental health issues. As the results of the survey showed greater understanding of mental illness and comfort with interviewing patients. I also was able to obtain a grant for the clinic to purchase books, handouts, and technology to help those volunteering students and psychiatrists at the clinic. To date, there have been hundreds of patients screened for depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety, and substance abuse at the clinic. Our patients were grateful to be able to see a psychiatrist at the same place that they came for general medical visits and for no cost. I presented these results and the model for incorporating psychiatric services into the general medical clinic at the APA's National Institute on Psychiatric Services Conference in Philadelphia. This model of the clinic is one that I'm very passionate about. Having a psychiatrist in the same office as the other medical providers not only allows for collaboration among physicians, but helps to decrease the stigma of seeing a psychiatrist in the first place. So, what comes next? I have graduated from medical school, and in a few weeks I will be starting my residency at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. During the first 4 years of residency, I will spend time working in the internal medicine departments, emergency medicine, neurology, and psychiatry departments. That first year will give me some well-rounded education to help follow up with the following 3 years where we'll get specific psychiatry training. Throughout my residency at the Mayo Clinic, I will be trained to manage a vast array of psychiatric illnesses and have exposure to cutting-edge methods of treatment. I hope to incorporate my own ideas and experiences with those of the incredibly talented physicians I will be working beside in order to brave new frontiers in the field of psychiatry and help to mold the very way that psychiatry is practiced. The PEO Scholar Award helped make this all possible. At the University of Nebraska Medical Center, where I attended medical school, the tuition for in-state students at this state school is $30,000 a year, and there are very few scholarships available to students at this level of training. The high cost of medical school tuition is a great financial burden that often weighs very heavily on students, and I am no exception to that. With the financial assistance that this award provided, I was able to decrease that burden and focus on working in the Sharing Clinic, my rotations, and getting into the very best residency that I could. For that, my PEO sisters, I extend my unending gratitude. Before I conclude, I'd like to take a moment to say thank you to Chapter HL and to all of my PEO sisters. When I joined PEO as an 18-year-old, I had no idea the role that this group would have in my life. Through all of these years, my sisters have stood next to me, encouraged me, motivated me, and most importantly, supported me in all of my decisions. You have meant so much to me. helped me through this very, very long process. And on more than a few occasions, you were my very own cheerleading squad who helped remind me of all the reasons I chose medicine. PEO Sisters, I am just one of the many women you have helped to achieve your educational goals. This organization does amazing things in the world, and I am fortunate to have experienced that up close. I'm proud to call myself a PEO. Thank you very much for everything.